morning. It's Monday. It's time for us to get excited about a new week, new beginnings. My name is Marisa Pluto, and I am your host. I'm the editor-in-chief of Own It Magazine and Publishing, and I'm so excited always to come before you. Our focus is on self-awareness, self-development, and self-mastery. Why are these important? So that you are able to navigate through this thing called life in a more fulfilling and happy and joyful way. Taking center stage and owning it with me is Teresa Palmer. She is one of our contributing writers to Own It Magazine. We are always excited to come live before you and just share our perspective on just ways that you can navigate through this thing called life. And our focus today, this month, throughout the month, is intuition and gut feelings, trusting your instincts. And so we went into it last week with our team of contributing writers, and here we are again today. Teresa, talk to us. We were warming up backstage and talking about how important it is to be self-aware. And I started chiming in on the consciousness of that level of being just, aware of yourself, and why is that important when it comes to trusting your gut, trusting your instincts, self-awareness?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing because I think there's a lot of talk about consciousness, about being aware, but yet I don't think people really understand it. I think that they just feel that if maybe they sit down and be quiet for a few minutes or meditate or take a yoga class, they're conscious. Well, they are in that moment, but in order to keep it, you really have to be aware of yourself throughout the day. Have you ever driven someplace and you get there, but you really don't know how you got there? It's because it was so familiar. But were you looking at the street signs? Did you see if something had changed? Had a new building been built? No, because we just put ourselves on autopilot, and that's how we function. And I think when it comes to our self-awareness and our self-consciousness, that we really have to pay attention, because we have an ego and we have our gut and heart feeling. Well, they're two different things. The ego wants you to stay where you are. So will the ego warn you if there's any danger? That's kind of up for debate, because say your ego wants you to do something. Say your ego wants you, I'm just going to pick a travel. Say your ego tells you to travel because you want to post all these things on social media, all the places you've been, so all the people could see how successful and wonderful you are. Well, maybe in your gut, it's saying, this may not be the right time to do this. Maybe you're overstretching yourself. Maybe you should hold back. And ego says, no, don't believe that. Just go with it. You could do this. Just do it. You're just being afraid. And we mistake that ego and that gut for fear. So guess what? We travel. Either something happens, we get a lot of delays, we don't have a good time, we come back home, and what do people say? I've heard people say more than once, I knew I shouldn't have gone on that trip, but I thought I was just afraid to go. Well, no, you weren't afraid to go. There was a reason not to go on that trip. And if you would have listened to your gut and your heart, instead of just your head, if you could have balanced all that, you would have seen that if something's not right and something doesn't feel right, it's not right. There's something to it. You may never find out what that missing piece was, but if you go, you will if you just go with your ego, because something will happen. But if you go with your gut and your heart, you may not find out what went on because you didn't experience it, but that was your protection. And I always say there's the three kinds of intuition. There's the intuition that protects you from something that's physically, emotionally dangerous. Then there's the second type of intuition, which is intuition that tells us that something is going on, but it's not telling us exactly what it is. It's that knowing that, I don't feel the best about this. It's like going for a job interview and saying, "Oh, I want that job." But when that person said that, or I just got this feeling from the energy in the room, but heck, I'm not going to go with it. That's the second type of intuition. It's telling you that you're not in danger. It's not going to physically or mentally hurt you, but it's telling you something's up. Listen to yourself. We often ignore it. And the third type is the type that pushes you on your path, your life's purpose, what you were meant to be. And that could happen at any age.
Mhm.
I mean, there's what was it? Picasso didn't start painting or something until he was in his 80s. Well, that was his life's purpose. And we get nudges, and we get nudges, and eventually we get hit over the head. And I know somebody who's in the healthcare profession, but she always wanted to do Reiki. That was what she always wanted to do. But she was a nurse in ICU, and I worked with her for a while. And she always thought there was more to things, but she had the security of a job. She wanted the pension. There were different things. Well, she finally, after years of being nudged in a direction and not listening to it, one day she up and lost her job because the hospital got taken over and merged. So she was out of a job. Guess what she was did? At that point, she did Reiki and she became very successful and known for it. And she's pretty now world renowned for it and has a lot of clients and helps a lot of people. But she was almost close to almost 60 years old when she realized what her calling was and acted on it. So we keep getting nudges, nudges, and eventually you're going to get a hit over the head. And that hit over the head may really startle you into doing what you were meant to do. That's your life's purpose, and we all have one.
Yeah, yeah, and you're so right about the nudging, and also too the ego. It's so important for us to that. That's why it's so important to, just like you said in the beginning, where you said sitting still and being quiet and meditating, but also to exploratory work, right? So it go out and explore things, and then create a plan. Like when you're talking about the nurse, it's so important for us to be in quiet moments, that we do the introspective work, we reflect, uh, and get in touch with ourselves. I notice that a lot of times people will keep other people around them. They'll stay in groups and different things like that. That's not how you get to know yourself, because a lot of times you're hearing everyone else's perspective on things and you're not getting connected internally with your own true pure perspective. And that takes you taking yourself out of environments and being alone and spending that alone time with yourself to do the reflecting. A lot of people journal, but what are you doing with that journal? Are you really allowing that journal to transform you, or are you just writing and going back into the group, back into the population, and conforming? Because for you to really get to know yourself, you're going to have to detach so that you can evaluate, assess, and address all that's coming into you, all that information. Uh, Being by yourself also allows you to get to know your own energy, right? Your own space, how you flow, what you really like and what you don't like. I know that, and I'll use myself as an example because I just know me, and so I know that at a very young age, I became a mom, right? So there was no time for me. Then I was a wife. again, there's no time for me if I don't intentionally set aside time for me. And that's so important. So in that environment and in that situation, it was always about serving others, making sure that others are happy. How are they doing? Are they good? Thankful that I started my children at an early age so that I could take back a large portion of my life at a very early age. Because you talk about 60, it was in my 40s that I became single, and my children were grown, and now one daughter's off to college, one's living on her own. So now it's empty nest. Now I have time to come back to a space of me. And what does that feel like? And what does that look like? And beginning to realize that along this journey, all along, I like a nice home. I like my things in order. Why is that important? Because we take for granted that if our environment is not what we really want it to be, it does have an impact on how we show up. It does have a direct impact on how happy we are, how focused we are, how grounded we are, how do we show up with other people, our patience level, our tolerance level. We don't realize when our environments are not the way that we subconsciously really want them to be, and that are in alignment to how we function and flow. That's how we're showing up. And so I can remember, and I'm thankful that even with my kids growing up, it was like, nope, we got to keep the house clean. Right? So there are some rules. And so by doing that, inadvertently, I still live a happy life.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I still felt good because when I leave my home and I can look around, not that it's perfect, not perfectly clean. I'm not, a compulsive person at all. I like a balance. So I understand that messy is necessary at times of transformation. So all of that I knew subconsciously. So, but to look and say, okay, everything is good at home. So when I go to an office, because I know my personality, I need to arrive early so that I have my peace before everyone comes. It's so important for us to know that, because when we know enough about and are able to produce in our lives what is necessary for us to be grounded, when other circumstances come our way, we're able to handle them a lot better. Am I right? Am I wrong?
You're definitely, yeah, you're definitely right. And it's so important. I always say meditation is the most important thing you can do. And that doesn't mean sitting with your legs crossed, your hands on your lap. It doesn't have to be formal, but you have to be quiet, not distracted, spend time with yourself. And that's the way you get to know yourself, because it's in that silence that you hear the voice. We all have a voice in our heart. And I know sometimes with science, it's kind of up for debate. Like, even, do you think with your heart or you think with your head? Truthfully, you think with both, because the heart has its own brain and actually has more neuroreceptors than the brain, and the messages come in through the heart, go to the brain. But that's a conversation for another time. But when you sit quietly, you get to hear those little voices, those little nudges that tell you. And with the environment, that's so important, because I'm going through that right now. And right now, if you looked at my environment, you would say that, I wish I could be in that environment. Okay, I live on a private lake, which I love. Don't get me wrong. Nice, clean house, things that I wanted, nice neighborhood. But I want an ocean and a beach. And right now, I'm 2.5 hours away from it. It's just not feasible. So, taken me a while to really convince my husband, because he keeps telling me, you have it all here. What more could you ask for? Well, he's right. And I tell you, if I could take my house and move it to a beach, I'd be happy. Probably won't. probably will have to downsize a little bit more to get what I really want. But I just feel, and my inner knowing is telling me that not only do I have to be by the water, but that water has to be an ocean. I
Yeah.
want an ocean. I want a beach. And if I say that to people, they kind of look at me like, well, somebody asked me, well, what's wrong with where you are? I said, there's nothing wrong with it. It just doesn't totally resonate with me. And it's funny because I lived another place for 60 some years and never really thought about my environment. But I think that's because I grew up there.
Right.
And I think once you're taken out of an environment, you go someplace else. I think it then becomes important to resonate with exactly where you are and what you want. So knowing yourself, if you know you want certain things, you have to go for it. Is it difficult? Yeah. Do I really want to move? Yeah, I want to move because I want to be someplace different, but it's a task.
Yeah.
It's not the easiest thing in the world. And yet people do that all the time. People move from country to country, from state to state. It can be daunting. But again, you have to listen to your own inner knowing
Right.
and what do you really want? And then how are you going to get it? How are you going to go about getting this? You have to look, you have to do some research, and you have to feel things. Internally, how do I feel when I go someplace? What do I feel about that environment? Do I resonate with it? And if I don't, I'm not going there. We had looked at some places because we want to be on the Gulf Coast, me more than anybody else in my
Right.
life.
Trust me, I get it.
But
I get it without
there
you.
were places, and we looked, and the realtor even looked at me one day, really funny, because we were exploring the Gulf Coast and we were exploring not Florida, but we were exploring Mississippi. And there was a very popular town, very popular beach town. And the realtor was so excited about it. And I explored the town a little bit, and I said, I just don't feel it. She said, feel what? I said, I don't feel like it's the place for me.
I'm
I
not
don't feel the vibe. And
right.
she looked at me like I had 12 heads, and she said, well, people are just dying to move here.
That's
I
people.
said, well, there's nothing wrong with the place, but no, I wasn't dying to move there. It just does not resonate with what I want. And yet, if I followed the crowd and followed my ego, I'd probably be living there.
Right. Right. And you said something that's so important is we're ever evolving. We're always evolving. And we have to, in our fulfillment, is directly connected to that evolving, our transitioning. And, I live here in the DR. If I could move a Home Depot, a Lowe's, a Walmart, perhaps, definitely a Staples. There are certain things, Michaels, there are my go-to spots that they are just not here. And so while we love, we also have to self-regulate, right? It's all about self-regulate, be self-aware, because you talk about ego is regulating. You have to pull that ego in. Ego is necessary at times, but it also has to be subdued at times. Pacing yourself is very important as well. Giving yourself a break and saying, hey, you can achieve this, but you have to have a plan. Have some kind of structured approach to what it is that you want next. And that's just, going back and saying, hey, you have to trust yourself. You have to trust what it feels right to you. If you go to a place and you're not feeling it, if you have to be there, hey, if you have to be there, then you have to be there. But if you don't have to be there, then know enough about yourself to not conform. There's so many people that will negate their own needs just for ego and to fit in and for status. And then they're wondering why they're not happy and they're miserable is because they're going against their own desires that are really their own needs, wants, and desires, just so that they can fit in and be a part of and conform. Um, and when they break free of that, I believe that that's when they'll really truly be happy and flourish. Just like you said with your colleague who, soared once she got into alignment with her life's assignment. And somehow, when you do what you love to do, it's just, it goes beyond money. It goes beyond relationships. Uh, there's just such an illumination that happens to you that you're just fulfilled. And the toxicity and the trauma, because sometimes when we're going against and we're not trusting our own instincts and our gut, we experience trauma because now we've allowed ourselves to be put in situations that are not healthy to us at all.
Right.
And then we're wondering why, why is this happening to me? It's happening to you because of the choices that you're making that not in alignment with your authenticity, with your authenticity. And being on the other side of that, willing to take the chance to do the things that, I love to do, to believe and trust what I was called to do. Um, that's priceless. And I believe that that's Maslow's hierarchy of needs. That's his argument and his theory is self-actualization is
Right.
to, because at that fourth level is, do I stay and conform? Do I place higher value on the thoughts of my social network, those I love, those I work with, those that make up, my world, or do I buck the system and truly be who I know I was meant to be? And that to me is self-actualization. To me, it's not perfection. It's about knowing thyself enough and loving thyself enough to go and be thyself with not with arrogance, but with humbleness and humility and fulfilling in one's own right to live, to exist, to be without compromise
Yeah.
in that level. And that's what I got out of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a great theory and model to understand being your own self.
Yeah.
It is. I fell in love with it when I was first
Yeah.
introduced to it.
Yeah, it's so true. And I have somebody here that joined the conversation,
Yes.
little lucky. And if you want to see intuition in action, just look at a pet
Mm,
because these pets use their intuition. That's how they get around the world. They don't use their ego. When was the last time you saw a dog with an ego? I mean, a dog has never seen themselves in a mirror. They don't even know what they look like. Other animals, the same thing. But they're who they are, their personalities, their instincts. And it's so important that we as humans balance our ego and balance our consciousness. And being self aware is so important. And I talk about it a lot with health because people probably get tired of this. But when you look at the statistics, heart disease, the number one cause of death in the United States, fifth worldwide. These statistics have not changed for many years, despite the fact that the American Heart Organization, Association, um, different cardiology organizations, World Health, there is so much public awareness, public education, and public resources available that we should have heart disease conquered because according to some of the research, 90% of heart problems could be prevented with action on the part of the individual. What is action? Self-care. But if you don't know yourself, how do you take care of yourself? You may start a self-care program, but you may be starting it because, okay, my cardiologist said I should exercise. I was watching YouTube and so said I should be doing this. I should be eating more grains or more nuts. That's all fine and well. But when you get to know yourself, what do you need?
Right.
Perhaps you need a different kind of exercise.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need yoga instead of weightlifting. Maybe you need a combination of things. But if you're just going by what other people are telling you and not knowing yourself, you don't know what works best for you. I mean, try as I could, I tried running throughout my life and I just can't do it. Nor can I stand on a treadmill because I do not like it. And yet, what would be the first thing a trainer would say to me if I went to a gym? They would put me on the treadmill. Well, I don't want the treadmill. I know myself. I don't do well on it. I don't concentrate. I count the minutes to get off. Is that any way to exercise? It isn't, because even exercise has to be enjoying.
Yeah.
Self-care has to be enjoyment. So when you're aware of yourself, you know what you need, you know how to get it, and you could then develop your own
Yeah.
program with a trainer and say, I don't do well with the treadmill, or I can't eat a lot of grains, or I don't like vegetables, with a nutritionist. What else can we do? Instead of just taking the plan, following it for a couple of weeks, for a couple of months, and then putting it by the wayside. And most people will say, well, that doesn't work for me.
Right.
Of course, it doesn't work for you because it's not what you need. The
Right.
same thing, even with diets. If you're on a strict diet, it's difficult to follow that. Maybe you need a more mindful eating approach. That once you're calmer inside and your cortisol is regulated, you don't have the need to eat that much. And if you're gaining weight and you're saying to yourself, I saw this a lot in 2020, where my patients would say to me, I'm exercising, I'm doing this, I'm not losing weight. Well, of course you're not, because you're scared to death with COVID.
Mm.
You know, your cortisol levels are going to be off the wall. I didn't measure them because we didn't do that in a traditional cardiology practice, but I told people, keep doing what you're doing. Once things calm down, once you get more centered in yourself, the weight will come off. And guess what? The weight started to come off once people were able to get information, once people were able to make their own decisions. They did better. And they said, you know, you were right. The weight did come off. I said, yeah, because you can't lose weight when your cortisol level goes through the roof and then depletes, and then your thyroid starts working harder. Everything starts working, your pancreas, you could develop diabetes. There's a whole mechanism. And it's all about being stressed. And a part of being stressed is not knowing even what stresses you. A lot
Right.
of times we don't want to look at those things. You know, you may be in a tough relationship, and maybe that relationship just isn't working. But the same thing with journaling. If you just write it down and say, I'm in a bad relationship, and put the book on the side, the journal on the side, it's not going to do you any good. It's acting on that. Why is it a bad relationship? Can I fix it? Do I need to get out of this? What are the steps I need to take? You're engaging yourself and your consciousness. And I really believe that's a big missing piece in healthcare, that we're not engaging ourselves. We're not really looking and doing that inner work. And is it easy? No, it's not impossible, but it means looking at the good, bad, and the ugly within yourself. And how could you change it?
Right.
Because there's always something you could do in any situation to help yourself. And I often think we forget that.
Oh,
That we think, yeah.
I remember when I first moved here, you first think that you're going to a warmer climate. So immediately I had 3 herniated discs in my back and in my neck, and we're going to close out with this. And so when I first got here, I started feeling all of these feelings like I had arthritis in my hands. My hands wouldn't open up. There's a lot, I'm waking up and I'm in a lot of pain. And well, the humidity level here consistently is off the chain. And so I didn't realize that. And I'm waking up and I'm speaking to my hands because, you know, I'm a believer. So I'm like, no, you won't work. But even the word of God says faith without works is dead. So even though you're praying and you're believing, if you got to change some things in the natural realm, you need to change the things in the natural realm so that the spiritual, those things that are not seen, can work together for the good. And so I got a dehumidifier, but I also realized that I'm sitting a lot. I sit a lot at my desk. I'm here day, night, whatever, getting it done. So as you age, you also have to make sure that you're moving. You keep your body moving and you keep your body. So for me, in going to the gym, just like you said, I can do the treadmill because I love music and all I need to do is get my music on and I'm good to go and I can get on that treadmill. But you don't have to be on the treadmill forever. You don't have to do treadmill mania. I'm on the treadmill 15 minutes because when your levels are right, and that adrenaline starts to kick in, that your weight will drop. I don't care what age you are. That's a lie from the pit of hell because at 42, it is. At 42 years old, I dropped 65 pounds. And I only had a trainer for the last 15 of those pounds. I had made a conscious decision. I got sick and tired of being sick and tired. And weight stress is the number one for women. That's why you're happy. It's because of the stress level. You are wearing everybody on your body. And so I was at a point in my life where I said, you were a gymnast in high school. You were a gymnast. You were fit. What the heck? How did you get here? And no, you don't have to stay here. You don't have to accept any of this stuff. What you have to do is discipline. You have to get pissed off enough, and I'm using that term because that's the level of you're done with it. You have to get to that point where you say enough is enough and change behavior because changed mindset has kicked in. And I'm going to tell you, it hit me. It's like, Marisa, you're not stretching. Stretch your spine. You're sitting and you're scrunching down, stretch your spine. So I lift up and I can consciously feel my whole body gaining inches. Like you can feel it when you're conscious enough and you are willing to believe that you can connect with your body. Pulling up, you're talking about doing just stands, and I don't take yoga. Taking and going and kicking your leg up and getting that balance in your body. Oh my God, I feel so good from the stretching alone. Not even getting to the weights, not even getting to the elliptical, because I do both treadmill and elliptical, not even getting it. Just the stretching alone, oh my God, feels so good. It feels so good when you connect with your body. When you know that you are the commander of your body. That's so empowering and so powerful. I know I can't do it, but the way I feel right now is I can go and take a building and toss it across the street or across the world. Because when you get in touch with yourself like that, it's an awakening that happens that says that you can do the things that you want to do. You just have to take the time to figure out how you are going to get it done. And that really goes back to trusting yourself and also to doing the work, believing that you are worth doing the work and that the results are on the other side of that. The results are on the other side, but you got to do the work by first starting to know yourself, then trusting your gut and your instincts because they were given to you for you. So now start trusting them and start making decisions that really align up with where it is that you want to go. Even when it means that you have to go it alone, because 9 times out of 10 it's better to go alone anyway, because you'll get it done. You bring somebody with you, they're going to convince you or slow you down. And I like doing stuff alone, because then I got to say, are you okay with what I'm getting ready to do? Can you keep up? No. When you go it alone, sometimes you're meant to go it alone and you'll get it done. And so we love you so very much. This has been great.
Thank
Teresa,
you.
it's always a pleasure. I mean, I love the way that you drop the statistics. You let us know the factual data, the reliable data, and you provide us with such a thoughtful and easy to follow, explanation and understanding of what's happening. So truly appreciate you for that. Guys, have a blessed week. This is the top of the week. It's your week. Own it. Be blessed, and we're out.